Hello, everybody. My name is Kamora, and today we will be reviewing the 9th installment of the first season of Bubble Guppies, Season 1, Episode 9, We Totally Rock. Now, if you guys don't know, if you're wondering what's going on with her voice, if you guys see my review of Into the Deep, you'll know that I explained that my voice isn't doing the best, and so I ask all of you to just bear with me, please. That's not going to stop me from getting this review. Okay, let's do this. So in this episode, after on their way to school, after Gobi and Gil see a rock band performance, the bubble guppies are inspired to make their own band. Now this episode, I will admit, this episode, as somebody who has a bit of sensory issues, I have a bit of problems with this episode because I don't know why. When I was younger, the sound of the electric guitar that was played in the episode over and over again, it kind of made me want to cover my ears. So I sometimes avoided this episode, but then when I got the chance to watch it again, it did not disappoint. This is by far one of the best episodes, season 1 standards. Season 1 standards. I'm not saying it's not good in the whole series, but like don't worry, it's still a really good episode. So on their way to school, Gobi and Gil, they're swimming and they hear this music and they see two rock lobsters. I especially love the lobster girl with the who's playing the drums, who has the pink hair. I loved her hair so much, and after hearing their music, I especially love that scene as a kid when they had the audience do the thing with the drums, like dubba 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 psh. Like I love that a lot. The drums always made me laugh as a kid. And then on their way, and then when they finally get to school, they do the same thing again, mimicking the guitar, electric guitar, and the drums, which was really nice. And I like all the Bubble Guppies cheering, and I like how they're like, "Thank you, Bubble Guppies." And then Gobi and Gil explained what they saw when they got to school, and then they said it was called rock and roll music. And Una asked, "What's rock and roll music?" They said it's a type of music. And then we get to the question segment. And they explain what instruments you'll hear in a band. And then we have our song. I totally I love to rock. I'm sorry, I got that confused with the end side. I will admit its visuals as younger, they kind of scared me, maybe because mostly it was very dark and there was like a lot of yelling. But I will say, as getting older, Dima's like coquette design, oh my god, it was so slay. I loved her coquette design. It was so cool. Then after that, after the song, um I also love the references in the music. They reference jazz, they reference rap music, they reference country music. I like that a lot. And then we get to the shop segment when Nani's electric guitar is kind of messed up, which is kind of ironic because he's playing electric guitar, and later on Gobi would have the electric guitar, and then Gobi would have the electric guitar later on in the episode, and then Nani would play the cowbell. So then Dima tries to fix it, and it makes a lot of funny noises when she's trying to fix it. Like there's even this one sound effect that I have vividly in my memory. It's like Ricky 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 Ricky. I don't know if that's how you make the noise. I don't know, but it was really funny. Then it starts to sound like different things, and then she does it again. She basically like fixes it up with like a guitar pick, and then finally Nani gets it to work. And then we have our and then we have our lunch joke, which is microphony and cheese, which is really funny. Really funny. And then we have our Molly and Gil segment, and then Molly and Gil Gil gives Molly a seashell, and then she was like, you can hear the ocean in it, which is I used to do that all the time when I went to the beach. And then Molly starts hearing, instead of hearing the ocean, she's hearing music. And then Gil's then Gil's he then doesn't hear it. He then corrects Molly. He's like, no, it's supposed to sound like the ocean. And then he shakes it, and turns out a crab is living in there, and his name is Guitarlo. And then the crab comes out, and he's like, I totally rock. And then he pinches Gil on the ear. He's like, ow. And Molly's like, are you okay? And then, really funny, Gil says, sometimes rock and roll music hurts your ears. And then they both head to the classroom, and then they're making like a lot of noise, and then Mr. Gruber is trying to get their attention. And I didn't really like that scene as a kid. Like, it was just, I told you this episode, it kind of had me on a bit of a sensory overload. And then Clam finally gets them to listen up, and then he's like, quiet. And then Gil's like, I don't think we rocked. And then Mr. Gruber corrects them, well, you're all playing a different song. And he said, shouldn't you all be playing it? And then the Guppies are like, so bluntly, they say, together. And which is kind of weird, because the way they said that makes me think that I'm not gonna say think that. The way they said it sounds like they don't want to play it together, which is not true, but that's what it just sounded like to me, So then they decided that we can put on a concert, a rock and roll concert, and that way they'll all be able to play together. And then we have another question segment about what they should have in their concert, like costumes, like be on the stage, sound effects, stuff like that, which is ironic because our last episode had a whole, also our previous episode, its field trip also happened on a stage, which is pretty ironic. And then we have our dance song, We're Gonna Rock It, which I loved it when Dima sang in the first season. She sang it so well. I loved it so much. And then we first got a glimpse into their rock and roll outfits, which I love it. It's so early 2010s. Oh my god, I love it so much. And then it's time to go outside, and then we have our story segment about Molly, who is called the last because this story is taking place in Scotland, and she's heading to a rock and roll concert. But then she meets this rock and roll lobster, and his design, it honestly scared me as a kid. Like, I would run behind the couch every single time I seen this character. I didn't like it. And then Molly insists that and by the way, he has bagpipes, and back then bagpipes, I hated the sound of bagpipes, but honestly, they're pretty cool, especially with Irish step music. Really nice. I mean, the Backyardigans made Irish step dancing work along with bagpipes, so the Bubble Guppies made it work. So come on. All right, and then Molly insists that I totally rock, and then she plays her guitar, and then this is why I was scared of the lobster as a kid. She was like, "What do you think?" And then he was like, "I think you look delicious." And like, oh man, oh god, like. And then she runs, and then she meets up with Una, and then she was like, and then Una was like, and then Molly says to Una, "Don't go over there. Don't go over to the bridge." And then because of the rock lobster, he won't let you pass unless you totally rock. And then Una decides to give it a try. And then when she tries, when I tell you this guy pulled out a fork out of nowhere, not even saying nothing, that's how you know he means business. Like, and then they scream, and then Dima comes along, and she says, "Hey girls, what's shaking?" And then Una and Molly tell her don't go over there because the rock lobster won't let them pass unless they totally rock. And then Dima suggests that she'll totally rock. And then she says, quite funny, "Take me to this lobster you speak of." I think that's what she said. I don't know. And then she plays her keyboard. And then and then when I tell you he has a tissue around his neck and his silverware, like, oh my god. Yeah, anytime there was even a mention of characters getting eaten in a kid's show, I was like, nope, I'm out. And then they decide, if I rock and you rock and you rock, we can all rock together. So then they all decided to sing together, and it works. And then they let them cross the bridge and make it over to the music festival. And then they tell the rock lobster, would you like to come with us? Which, honestly, to be honest, if I were them, I would not let him go with me, because yeah, I, after seeing those silverware, those that decided that silverware, I wouldn't really trust them that much. But that's just me. Well, in any Bubble Guppy fashion, the villain and the, and the protagonist, they live happily ever after, making it to the music festival together. And then another Molly and Gil segment. They all have Molly and Gil. Gil has his little stage up for Guitarlo, since, and I like, it's really cute. And then Guitarlo isn't coming out, and then Molly swims away. He's like, maybe he doesn't want to come out. And then as soon as Molly leaves, Gil shakes the shell again. Sorry, he shakes the shell again, and then once again Guitarlo pinches his ears. And then it's the field trip segment, and it's finally time for their rock and roll concert. And they're practicing backstage. I love the backstage setting, and everybody in the crowd is just cheering. And can I just say, Mr. Grouper is by far the coolest teacher ever. Like, he let them open up a restaurant, and now they're having their own concert. Like Miss Frizzle, we never heard of her. Mr. Grouper, best teacher of the year, people. Best teacher. I'm telling you now, best teacher. And then I especially love Molly's warm up, who she's singing, because of course my girl's gonna be singing, lead singer, period. And then everybody's getting ready to rock. And then when Gil's practicing his drum solo, he loses his cymbal. And then Mr. Grouper hears them backstage, Dima saying, that means we can't put on our rock and roll concert. And then Mr. Grouper asks what's going on, and then they said Gil can't find a cymbal. And luckily they find it quick, because it was hiding right under Bubble Puppy. And can I just say, I love their outfits. And fun fact, they actually came out with a toy of this inspired by this episode, just like called Clambulance. They came out with a playset for this show, and I desperately want it. I want it so bad. Okay, I want it. And then they play a banger song, We Totally Rock. Like, especially the song, they're like, we totally rock, don't we be small, we totally rock, we feel 10 feet tall, we totally rock, we make you jump up and down, we totally rock, come on, shake, come on, we rock this song, rock and roll. And I like how Dima, she wails like, yeah! Like, I love that so much. The song was a banger. It made me kind of cover my ears a bit, but honestly, it hit. And especially the fireworks sparks at the end added a finishing touch. I loved it. The fireworks at the end added a cherry on top. The sparks, just, oh my god, amazing. And then lastly, the last Smiley and Gil segment, they're talking about how good the show was, and then Gil tells a little joke, and he actually has rocks in his hand because they rocked. And fun fact, they actually swim off the screen. Normally one of Molly or Gil, they swim off the screen. And they're gonna do this again in Haunted House Party, where they swim off the screen and then the little blue thing closes. So overall, this episode was a banger. Though it kind of gave me a bit of sensory issues as a kid, it was still good. I'm gonna give it a 10. It was so much fun. I loved it super duper much. It was amazing. And that means we're all done with our first half of season 1. And our next episode is going to start off the second half of the first season. So tune in with me as we will be reviewing season 1, episode 10, aka the beginning of our other half of season 1, Fish Get Ball. See you all next time.